What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and Jesse Cofield hanging out at the DraftKings studios in Boston. We are brought to you by Wrangler. Made for the ride of life. Save 15% on your first Wrangler.com order using promo code GOJO15. Got a great show for you. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review. Leave us the 5-star. Check us out Monday through Friday live here, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on DraftKingsNetwork.com, the DraftKings YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, Roku, all that good stuff. Got a fun one for you today, guest-wise. Patrick Peterson, cornerback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Lots of change in the air around Pittsburgh, feeling like maybe offensively they got a little bit of mojo going after this last game. We'll talk to him about the overall vibe and how the hell Pittsburgh keeps doing this, what the secret to Mike Tomlin's deal with the devil is that allows him to just keep winning games even though it makes no sense to us. And then actor Chad Michael Murray joining the show today right now. And our resident One Tree Hill fan, Jesse Cofield, has been beaming ever since this idea came up. So, Jesse, big day. How are you feeling with this one on deck?
I'm excited. He's just a generational talent. So I think we're all just lucky to be in his presence.
It's been a long time coming, there's no doubt, so we're very much looking forward to this one here. Dad, how are you feeling coming off against an unexpectedly good Thursday night football matchup? Well, let's put it this way. I want to ask you, was it good? Because we got a game that was close, a game that was compelling, and also a game that featured 19 penalties throughout the course of it. So how are we feeling about this?
Yeah, at one point Al Michaels said, maybe we should just let the referee, I think it was Clete Blackman, just finish the game since he was the one speaking the most. Seattle had 10 penalties and Dallas had 9 penalties. But not, for those that like scoring, and that's most people, me as a former defensive player, I love to see a good defensive battle, and we know what Dallas's defense had been capable of. And this was not it. I mean, it had been, 20 possessions since Seattle scored a touchdown, and they were scoring touchdowns left and right. That first one to DK Metcalf, the 73-yarder, was a great pass and a great run, great catch and run. Let me just say this. If we can get that game tonight with Washington and Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game, I'd be ecstatic. And because that's kind of what we got in the first meeting of those two. And we'll talk about that a little later as the college championship games are starting tonight. But what a game it was. We were kind of giving this one to Dallas and then seeing what happened with San Fran and Philly. And could it be possible if Dallas beat Philly next week, there'd be a tie at the top? Well, Dallas took care of their part, but I mean, listen, they had more, I think 13 more minutes in time of possession. They were controlling that part of it. They only had about 5 more total yards. So Seattle was getting more yards per play, but the defense came up big in the end. I think 3 times Seattle had a chance in the fourth quarter to bring this one back, and Dallas held them on downs each time. So impressive by them. Seattle, all of a sudden, we start to wonder. Right now, they're in the playoffs. Can they hold on to that spot? Because they actually look good after losing 2 in a row, now 3 in a row, but losing those 2. But the offense wasn't looking good. It started looking better last night. So overall, I think even with the outcome of Seattle losing again, it made it more intriguing for me in the NFC wildcard race.
Yeah, this was a clear on Seattle's side call and response from their head coach to the team. You saw during the lead up to this game, Pete Carroll actually said, hey, we need to get more involvement with our tight ends. We've got a really interesting group there with Will Dissly and those guys. And so we saw them put a lot more multi-tight end sets on the field, try and do that to take some of the sting, Dad, off this Dallas pass rush that everybody's so afraid of. And lo and behold, for the normal body of the game where the score was in balance and they weren't having to chase, they were able to actually do that pretty well. It was towards the end, once you had to start getting back into the drop back stuff, and obviously during the desperation attempts at the end, you saw Micah Parsons and that pass rush finally able to pin their ears back a little bit and get after Geno Smith, who you saw it taking a little bit of a beating over there, getting that elbow massaged on the sideline that he got hit by Aaron Donald a few weeks ago. And so, Dad, it was one of those nights where I ultimately came away feeling good about the Dallas Cowboys. During a large body of this game, it felt like the here we go again, right? Dallas faces a team with a record above 500 or near 500, and all of a sudden, a real playoff team has them shrinking back into the team more we saw against San Francisco. But they found a way, and I know that's the most cliche winning thing ever, but they got into a battle, and they were able to make the necessary plays. Deron Bland, who got thrown at left and right, I think gave up the most yards when targeted of any defensive back so far this season in the first half, ends up making the interception in the second half. The Dad, when you go along with that, and then the Cowboys holding them to 0 for 3 on fourth down, that's the difference in a game where both sides have played pretty evenly.
Yeah, it is. And Bland, those numbers, I think it was 138 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first half when he was the nearest defender. So a guy that has last week just set the record for most pick sixes in a season with 5. Listen, Seattle didn't have the running game that they wanted. Kenneth Walker, the second, was out. So that running game took a little bit of a hit there. And Geno, you're right, getting his elbow massaged. So that's actually Seattle. Seattle had 4 sacks in this game against an O-line in Dallas that this Dallas O-line has been healthy together for a while now, and that's something you kind of cross your fingers, especially with a Tyron Smith, who, by the way, still looks like an absolute unit out there. I mean, it's ridiculous. For the injuries that he has and how long he's been in the league, the dude is a stud. But between him and Zach Martin, who Smith's been nicked more than Zach, but they're getting up there in age. This has been a healthy line, and they gave up 4 sacks in this one. That was a little surprising. Like I said, the defense for Dallas, to me, gave up more than I thought they would, but they made the plays when they needed to make the plays. So that's all that matters. As we talked about, there's no 13-person committee rating anybody in the pros. It's just get the win. Get the win and move on, and they did, and now they get 10 days to kind of chill, and Sunday watch what the Eagles do against San Francisco before they host the Eagles next week. And I'm very excited. That's the game I'll be calling next Sunday night, so I'll have ended up calling both Eagles-Cowboys games this year, so I'm really, really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think it is interesting you mentioned no 13-person committee. This isn't college, but it almost had that feel where I went, look-ahead game. Like Dallas is at home hosting this Seahawks game. Maybe they got caught peeking a little bit at Philadelphia coming down the road, but and the reaction, I think, initially was the sticker shock of, Seattle hadn't looked like themselves lately. But we knew offensively this was in there. We knew they're capable of this, especially when healthy. And you got Abe Lucas, their right tackle back, which helped a lot. We saw early in that game, Herbstreit did a good job of highlighting some of the big plays that he helped make in the running game there. But as time went along in that game, Zach Charbonnet, their starting running back, I think a knee bruise went down late in that game. So they were down to DJ Dallas in that backfield with them. And things started to just snowball once the game script got out of whack. But the other part of it, Dan, we mentioned it off the top, like that was a compelling game with the players on the field and what they were able to do. But my God in heaven, a combined 19 penalties for 257 yards. The game in the third quarter was unwatchable. Every single play, you just listen to the whistle blow, wait for the whistle to blow for the play to stop, and then looked on the ground to see where the flag was and who it was on this time. For Seahawks fans, I have to imagine immense frustration because for a while, the Cowboys' best source of offense was defensive pass interference. It was the all DPI offense for the Dallas Cowboys for a large stretch in that second half. For a Seattle secondary, they had to be looking around wondering what the hell they were supposed to do.
Yeah, and that's one thing, we always talk about, are they ticky-tack calls? And whether they are or not, the one thing you look for is consistency. So if you're, and as we have talked about, I think that's the hardest position to play in the NFL now, is the secondary and what you're, forget allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. And you only ask, you may not like a ticky-tack call, but if you're going to do it the entire game and make sure I know that that's how you're going to call it, because then I can base my play on how you're calling the game. The worst is, when you let something go and then call a ticky-tack, let something go and then call a ticky-tack. So you don't know what the hell is going on out there or when you're going to get a call or how you're supposed to play. So you're just looking for consistency. But you're right. After every play, you were just looking for the yellow icon to pop up right by the score that said flag, knowing there was going to be one. The one thing I loved watching, and these two guys, they're scary players, right? Bobby Wagner dude's been playing for 50 years. He's a Hall of Famer and still looks fantastic. Had 14 tackles last night. And another guy who's only played, I think, 8 games this year, Jamal Adams. We're seeing kind of the old Jamal Adams, but him and Jake Ferguson, the tight end for Dallas, were they getting into it. And then Jake Ferguson got the last laugh as he scored what turned out to be the game-winning touchdown on Jamal Adams, just kind of gave him a quick look and then did like a Gronk spike kind of in his area. But those two guys, I know they gave up points, but I just mean as individual defenders, man, those two bring the heat.
Yeah, I mean, both of those two. Jaron Reed, I thought, had a big night last night. You mentioned the pressure given up by Dallas up front. Tyler Smith, who's been largely great for the Cowboys this year.
He has.
There were a couple of spots where you saw Jaron Reed really flashing and having some success against him. I thought Terrence Steele and Tyler Smith both had games that were uncharacteristic. We've seen them both play really well. Terrence obviously got the contract for it this offseason, but came alive at the right time. So might give you a little bit of pause going forward, but ultimately I think this was a net positive for the Dallas Cowboys, the way they were able to respond in this game. Like you said, it was 10 penalties on one side, 9 on the other, and both near up over 100 yards. So it wasn't like one was affected largely more than the other, though you could point situationally in this game and maybe say it, but the plays got made when they needed to be made, mostly and especially, Jesse, by their quarterback in Dak Prescott for the Dallas Cowboys, who, as we go along here, I feel like we've been having it to some extent, but we probably need to sound the MVP siren even louder for a guy that once again was big time for his team.
Yeah, and we've been talking about this. We talked about it yesterday about how they kind of really needed a win here because they've got a tough schedule moving forward, and Dak acknowledged that about this tough stretch coming up.
But obviously know the stretch that we have coming ahead of us, and this was a big one to get, as you said. The first one with the winning record, but more importantly, in the fashion that we did, in a tough game, back and forth, down at halftime, down in the fourth quarter, and the guys and the team really just making plays when plays were needed and playing ultimate complementary football. Stopping them, getting a touchdown. Obviously, defense getting two fourth down stops when the game was on the line was huge. So it was complimentary football at its finest to get a big win that's been different than most of these at home, and we can take, as Coach always says, a big chunk of confidence. We can take that into next week and just moving forward. And
yeah, so those MVP odds, Dak is sitting at 4th at plus 475 right now. So that was a very shiny jacket also. I have to point that out. I couldn't stop looking at it. I felt like I could see
there was a lot going on with that jacket.
Yeah.
There was really a lot going on with that jacket. And congratulations to Dak. Found out last night, the Thursday night post-game show, that he's about to be a dad. Him and his partner are expecting a baby girl, so that's exciting for him. But, Dad, how surprised are you? Dak Prescott only 4th in the MVP odds right now. If nothing else, like excluding the play on the field, which we highlighted yesterday, Dak splits for the year almost universally 1st or 2nd in every meaningful passing category relative to QBR against different looks on defense. You can look, he's 2nd in EPA per play amongst quarterbacks. He's 6th in completion percentage over expectation. He's been sensational for them. We've talked about it in big moments, clutch moments on 3rd down. And he plays for the Dallas Cowboys. I figured this was a spot where the unusual coverage that we give to the Dallas Cowboys because of the helmet sticker would benefit Dak in this case. And is it holding him back from actually getting the credit he deserves?
No, I think he's had a nice run since our loss to Philadelphia. I mean, he's had 13 touchdowns and 1 interception. He had 6 on the year, and he threw 3 against San Francisco when they got blown out in that game. So I think that was a big thing to watch for him, was would he turn the ball over? And he hasn't in the winning streak since the Philadelphia loss. It was interesting. He was sacked 4 times last night and wasn't sacked in the previous 3 games. But I think because he's now really, you gave the stats, but really when people look at, because there are a lot of people that maybe don't dive on the outside looking in, don't dive into the stats that you just gave and see how he's playing and see how, if he's turning the ball over or not. And he's not, and he's playing better than he has in a long, long time. So I think as each week goes by, and next week's big. If they win in Dallas and he has a big game, I think those odds you just saw where he's 4th are going to take a little bit of a turn.
I was going to say, it's a great value right now as far as a bet, because to your point, so much of MVP down the stretch, right, wrong, or indifferent, it's like the Heisman, where it's what opportunities do you really have to wow people? And having that game, primetime game against the Eagles, like you mentioned, on Sunday Night Football, and then the Bills and the Dolphins after that, the Lions not far after that, that also, I believe that's the Monday Night Football game, the Lions and the Lions and the Cowboys. So you're going to have opportunities with big stages and big audiences for you to go out there and ball. And if he does, you're right, I have a feeling that's going to move. So play-wise, he's certainly already backed it up, but narrative-wise and all that momentum that you sometimes need around this award, especially around the betting portion of it, I think he's... based on the candidates we're looking at right there, this is no shade to Jalen Hurts, who's been sensational. I think he's like the second leading rusher in terms of touchdowns scored in the NFL right now. He's up there with double-digit rushing touchdowns again this season. Brotherly shove obviously factored into that, but he's been great. But Dak Prescott should probably be the front runner for MVP right now. That doesn't matter, as everyone's pointed out. I've seen David Hellman fighting that fight over there. It doesn't matter if he's the MVP of the end of November into December right now, but I'm a little bit stunned we're not talking about him more in that way, because his play absolutely deserves it.
Yeah, but a lot of it, and do you want to say good or bad, it's tied to the team's wins or losses. And this is something we always talk about. Quarterbacks, it shouldn't be wins and losses for quarterbacks, right? It's for teams. Because go to the Philly game, they lost 28-23, right? Dak completed 66% of his passes, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. I mean, those are good stats. Looked like he played well in that game, right? I mean, in what he did, but they lost the game. So that's what people look at. It said it's Jalen Hurts. It's not Philadelphia against Dallas. It's Jalen Hurts against Dak Prescott. That's how we view things, right or wrong. And I think it's wrong, but I think that's how a lot of people view things. And it's like, big game, can Dak lead the Cowboys to victory in the big game? When we sit there and talk about Micah Parsons as being, the defensive player of the year, it's not, can Micah Parsons lead the Cowboys to a win over the Philadelphia Eagles? It's, can Dak Prescott? It's always on the quarterback, which gives you a reason why Mahomes' name is always near the top, because he's got these MVPs and he's Patrick Mahomes. So you just kind of say his name and you're like, oh, best quarterback in the league. That's kind of how it gets viewed.
Which, you know what, and Mahomes being up there too, and that does make sense, and we probably don't talk enough about what he's at. Like, this year, all we've talked about is, can they get another receiver besides Travis Kelce to step up there? What the offense is doing, taking a step back, and they're still in the position where they're at, where they're largely viewed as one of the best teams in the NFL. They did the transition they did last year away from Tyreek Hill, and we're still the number 1 offense in the NFL by and large because of him. So we're getting a little bit of that Jordan LeBron syndrome with Patrick Mahomes, where it takes so much for us to be wowed by him enough to talk about him in these conversations, even though he's playing MVP football every year. He could absolutely win MVP every year, and I wouldn't beef with it at this point. He's usually that good.
And oh, by the way, you started listing where Dak is tops in different categories. You know who has more tops in the NFL in different categories? And I didn't hear his name called from Jesse in those things. Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy gets 0 love. right? And start looking at some of his numbers when you dive in and break down the numbers of where he is. He leads the league in quarterback rating, leads the league in completion percentage, has 19 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. His team, obviously out of that 3-game skid, has been playing really well. And his name is mentioned I don't know where it shows up on this list because we gave you the top 4, but why isn't he talked about more? Is it because he was Mr. Irrelevant?
Brock Purdy is, for what it's worth, Brock Purdy is 6th in MVP odds right now, according to DraftKings Sportsbook. That's as of this past Sunday, by the way. So these odds haven't updated after the game last night. It's Jalen Hurts first, Mahomes second, Lamar third, Dak fourth, Tua fifth, and then Brock Purdy in the 6th spot there. And I'm not sure what part of that is, Dad, and I can tell you exactly what the difficulty is. Right behind Brock Purdy, you want to guess who's 7th in MVP odds right now in the NFL?
Is it possible?
Christian McCaffrey. He's getting it cannibalized from his own backfield mate there in San Francisco. So part of this is also when you're a part of the team that comes together like Voltron with all of these great all-pro players everywhere, it gets a little bit cloudy, even though you're right. I shouldn't say there needs to be more. We've had plenty of Brock Purdy conversation as a nation going back to this summer, and we have arrived at the point he is confirmed good. There is no disputing it. There is no denying it. We'll see if he has his day in court with the MVP. Coming up next, let's turn ahead to college football's Conference Championship weekend next.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. It is time to turn our attention to the college game, okay, with our Modelo College Football Weekend Preview brought to you by Modelo, the mark of a fighter. So let's start with the Pac-12 Championship, all right? Oregon, Washington. Senior, you are praying for another game like the one we got last night on Thursday Night Football.
Nothing like, praying for a college game to be high scoring like an NFL game. That's something you don't usually see. And I think I'm going to have a bucket of Modelo next to me for this one because I am looking forward to this one. Now, again, the end of the day, it's all about us and what makes us look good. So I picked Washington at the beginning of the year to be in my Final Four. And if they win, I'll be right. And I'd like to be right. But it's very difficult, Mike, for me to go against Oregon and how they're playing right now. They are absolutely on fire. They've won, obviously, every game since they lost to Washington. They're destroying teams. And that game against Washington was a 3-point game. For Washington, you had, Adunze and Polk both over 100 yards. Penix throws for 400. But Oregon in this one rushed for over 200 yards. And to me, one of the biggest differences, Mike, and you don't say this a lot about Pac-12, is defense. Oregon's defense is playing some ball. They get after the quarterback. They can stop the run pretty well as well. So I like their defense. I think that's been a bit of a difference. Washington's been in closer games since that win over Oregon, a couple of scares here and there. In all honesty, and I said it the other day, I think Oregon's playing like possibly the best team in the country right now. I'm not giving the 10. I think that's too much. I think that's the line right now is 10. Yep. I'm not giving 10. I'd like to see Washington win personally because it makes me look good that I was a good prognosticator in getting Washington in from my pick in the beginning of the year. But I think Oregon's going to win this game, but I'm not going to give the 10 points.
I'm with you. Washington plus 10 feels like the move here. The game the first time around, the entire difference in the outcome, the subject of so much of the conversation, was around what Dan Lanning and company did on fourth down in that game. They went 0 for 3 on fourth down in some pivotal moments going into the half and obviously later in the game where they had in 4th and 1 situations. They were good go calls and just plays that ultimately didn't work. A lot of designed rollouts that seemed obvious to anybody who would watch Oregon on tape. Oregon on the year is converting it over 70% on fourth down. They're usually good in those spots, and that's the area where if it gets down to a close game, I do trust them to make plays in those spots. Washington's defense has struggled through the back half of the year in a bunch of games. It's why they've been so close, like you mentioned. UW does have the nation's second longest winning streak. They roll into this one. Only Georgia's got better than them. They're on 19 straight right now. And the passing offense still hums. Like, that's going to be a legitimately awesome matchup. And styles make fights. For the Oregon Ducks, they spread him out. They get Bo Nix on the move. He's great outside of the pocket, buying time back there. He's got some of the most exciting scramble plays, scrambling to still throw the ball that you'll see all year. Troy Franklin, Bucky Irving are awesome weapons there. But you mentioned it. Washington on every play. Enjoy the show. Enjoy the show on offense. They're a grab bag to start every play. They shifted motion as much as any team in college football. If you haven't watched the Huskies yet this year, Dad mentioned 2 of the names. Rome Odunze is going to be a first-round draft pick at wide receiver. He's one of the guys that's, I believe, a finalist for the Biletnikoff that goes to the best wideout in college football. But Jalen Polk might be my favorite guy in that room. Juice player, tons of energy, big, tough athlete. They got studs in that room that they're going to move all over to try and exploit. So I'm with you. This should be another awesome matchup. It's out in Vegas at Allegiant and kicks off what'll be a great conference championship weekend, but we're both aligned on Washington plus 10 in this game, even with Oregon getting the win, which I think gets them a bid to the college football playoff. Yes. That brings up our next contestant here, Dad. Let's go to the SEC Championship. Georgia versus Alabama. Georgia favored by 5.5 as of right now, according to DraftKings Sportsbook. And for Alabama, they come in off of another exciting Iron Bowl, one where they got out by the skin of their teeth off the back of a Jalen Milroe throw that'll get talked about for quite a while, especially if they win this game, Dad. So are you buying all the Alabama momentum going into this one against Georgia?
So of these two teams, which team has changed the most for the better? It's been Alabama, right? Jalen Milroe, remember, he was benched early in the season. And then I loved when Nick Saban said he won the job back. He didn't win the job back. He got the job back by default because the other 2 quarterbacks they put in couldn't do anything, so Jalen Milroe got his job back. And by the way, kudos to him. He took advantage of that. But they have changed and improved the most because he started passing well, which helped Tommy Reese, their old coordinator, be able to change the game plan a little bit and not kind of hide the passing attack and focus more on the run, but now be able to pass the ball more. That being said, I just don't know, Mike, if Bama can stop the two-headed monster of Edwards and Milton in the backfield for Georgia, right? They've been running the ball great. Alabama is struggling to stop the run. Alabama cannot stack the box to stop the run because then there's this guy named Brock Bowers that will kill you in the middle of the field as soon as your linebackers start stepping up. Even though Bowers is coming off that tightrope surgery, missed 3 games, he is still probably the best player on the team, on both these teams, quite honestly. So while I think Alabama has gotten better this year and certainly beat the odds on that touchdown throw against Auburn, I'm going to go with Georgia here. I think they control it with the run. It's a 5.5-point game. I'll even say it's closer than that. I'll even say, it's like a field goal game. So I'm going to take Georgia, but I'm not going to give that many points, which is, I think, 5.5, I believe we're at.
Worth noting, we did prognosticate Nick Saban already out here politicking, was on with McAfee on Thursday and said it would be disrespect to the SEC if there wasn't an SEC representation in the college football playoff. So Nick getting a head start going into the weekend, and a company man even going to bat for Georgia should they get the win in this game. So Nick Saban always giving of content. But Dad, I'm with you on this, and I'll mention the other name. And I've said this, I got to cover Georgia twice this year, first against Kentucky, second against Missouri. So 2 of their bigger tests of the season. Ladd McConkey's health was one of the single biggest factors for this offense continuing to develop post Todd Monken. For Mike Bobo, who came over and succeeded Todd Monken, who was back for a second time after a stint in the early 2000s. Ladd McConkey came back in earnest against Auburn. He missed the first 4 games with a back injury, and ever since then, as he got healthier and healthier, that offense changed for the better around him. Brock Bowers, obviously a huge part of that too. I think they've got what it takes, Dad. I think this team has stepped up to their biggest challenges so far. Georgia in a close one, heading to the college football playoff, which means then we're getting down to our 3rd game here, Dad, for the potential anarchy in this weekend if we believe those first results to be true. ACC Championship, Florida State versus Louisville. And Dad, this opened as a 5.5-point line in favor of Florida State and is now down to 1.5. So people have been taking the cheese as far as Louisville and the points walking into this game. Tate Rodemaker, the backup quarterback, in for the injured Jordan Travis. Now for his 2nd start this season, he got the win on the road in an ugly one against their rival in Florida. What do we think, Dad?
Well, still, Rodemaker, I don't think you want to put the game on his shoulders. You want him to manage well, and you have a hell of a rusher in Jordan, who's a number 2 rusher in the ACC, right? And you have Keon Coleman, who is one of the top receivers in the country. Wilson's been nicked up a little bit, the 6'7" kid, but Coleman has been money all year. So this is one of those games where, when a backup comes in, you got to lean on your stars to control the game. And certainly that's going to be offensively, the offensive line as well. But like I said, Jordan at running back, Coleman at wide receiver, get the ball in their hands, let them make the plays and eat up the clock. Louisville has got to be just still sick that they lost that game to Kentucky, and their whole premise now is to knock Florida State out of the playoffs. The ACC will not be represented if Louisville wins this game because Louisville ain't getting in. The only way ACC getting in is if Florida State wins. I'm still going to give Florida State the benefit of the doubt, Mike, for the Verse, that kid on the pass rusher on the other side for Florida State. Verse, I think he's Mel Kiper's number 1 edge guy coming up in this draft. That dude is a terror. Every single play on a pass, he is in the backfield looking for it. So I'm going to go with Florida State. I'll go ahead and I'll give the 1.5 and say Florida State makes the playoffs.
Yep, you could have had me at 5.5 in this game, absolutely, because I think Louisville, we've seen in the games where they've played really well, they get off to fast starts. They've held 16 straight opponents without a score on their opening drive. They can be overwhelming defensively. I think Florida State takes the challenge from last week personally. They got punched in the mouth a little bit physically by Florida. I think they battle back, and I think this punches their ticket to the playoff. We've had this conversation about an undefeated Power 5 champion floated out there. Would they potentially miss? I say no way. Florida State punches their ticket and gets to the college football playoff.
All right, Mike, before we get back to Jesse to talk about what we're going to talk about next, quick correction by me. I mentioned the rushing attack for Florida State and passing, the two weapons. I mentioned Jahar Jordan, ACC's number 2 rusher. He's on Louisville. I switched my backs. I meant for Florida State, Trey Benson, who's averaging over 6 yards a carry, 14 touchdowns, how him and Coleman can help carry that offense. So wanted to make that quick correction and give Benson his due, which he deserves.
No, that's an understandable mistake given the cavalcade of great running backs in that game there, and behind an offensive line that, listen, Alex Atkins, anytime you've got an offensive coordinator in name, I understand the role Mike Norvell plays and all that, but anytime you got an offensive line coach that also has OC as his title, I'd expect good things from those boys up front trying to go to work against that Louisville defensive front. So Trey Benson, correction noted, correction made. Jesse, let's stick in college sports, though, because we hadn't talked about this story much yet, so I'm excited to dig into this. Everything that had been going on with Angel Reese and LSU and her absence from the court that finally came to an end last night in a big win for LSU against Virginia Tech.
Yeah, the mysterious drama is apparently over for now. I don't know. She returned to the lineup for LSU after that 4-game absence, as you mentioned. So they were facing number 9 Virginia Tech. LSU won that one. Angel had 19 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists. Kim Mulkey got her 700th win. Reese was benched for the second half of LSU's 4th game of the season against Kent State. And then she did not get to travel with the team to the Cayman Islands over Thanksgiving break, which would have just been devastating, I can imagine. So it seems like that was a punishment. So let's hear from Angel herself after the game last night.
It was a long 2 weeks, or a week and a half, 2 weeks, to be away from the team. Taking time to yourself is really important. I feel like that's just something that was important, and resetting and refocusing within the team. I'm just happy to be back, and this place was amazing tonight, and I'm just happy to be here with them.
Proud of her. Not really the production proud, just proud. Proud that how she handled herself, proud of how she was back to the Angel everybody knows, proud that her teammates embraced her, proud how she treated everybody. She loves seeing everybody. This is where she's comfortable. And you saw everything. I mean, so positive. There's nothing but positive things about what happened on that floor tonight.
You know when somebody gets asked a question and then they answer the question and they didn't answer the question at all? That's what this felt like. Just a lot of just like, yeah, and then you just say something completely unrelated. So she's back.
That's the Mike Tomlin press conference extraordinaire.
Exactly.
He is an absolute master at just using whatever question you ask, I'm going to get to what I want to talk about. Or in this case, Dad, what Kim Mulkey didn't want to talk about. And that's kind of been the subject of this whole thing is, and her stock line has been, we don't owe you guys an answer about why Angel Reese is missing time right now, going back to that benching, not making the trip to Cayman's, which you're right, thoughts and prayers. Oh, that sucks.
Wow.
There are and listen, it's not like Baton Rouge is a terrible place, and it's not like they're dealing with winter in earnest like the rest of us, but you're a college kid with a chance to go to the Cayman Islands, and you don't get to go. That does suck. No two ways about it.
It's kind of like the Bahama Bowl, right?
Oh, my God.
They rip the Bahama Bowl every year because about 300 people show up, but who cares? If you're a player or a coach or an announcer, you're
Which, by the way, thoughts and prayers to Steve Levy, who's parlayed that into his deal and now doesn't get to go. Remember, the Bahamas Bowl, because of construction, is now going to be played in Charlotte under a different name this year. So, again, remember, God giving his toughest battles his strongest soldiers, etc.
So I will say this. There are people today that rip old school. And while I am old school in some things, I do believe there's still a place for some old school in new school. I think they can coexist in some areas. And this is an area where I feel they can coexist. I'm very old school in this. I am very old school in the locker room, stay in the locker room. Outside of anything that, has to do with the law that's public that people can find out, obviously, which different situations. But if it's something within the team, I have zero issue. In fact, it's the way I would handle it, the way Kim Mulkey handled it. It's none of your damn business. It's not your business. And I'm not going to tell you. If she wants to tell you, that's up to her. But I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to talk about what's going on behind closed doors in our locker room or with any of my student athletes. It's not happening. Ask all you want, but you're not getting an answer from me. So, and as a player, I think they would respect that as well, that nobody's airing their dirty laundry out. We don't know. Everybody's going to speculate what went on here. And the bottom line is, if I never find out, that's okay by me. I'm all right with that. I'm all right with that. And Kim Mulkey, I agree with her 1,000%.
I think the problem is the actor involved here. A lot of people don't trust Kim Mulkey's intentions. We've seen her not always operate with the best interests of her players in mind in public dealings, and I think that sticks in a lot of people's craw, is that you might buy this from somebody else, but with Kim Mulkey, we all of a sudden have antennas raised here. And, Dad, the other part of this is this. You do create more fervor by not saying anything. Like, this could have been a non-story if you came out and said, hey, it was, hey, she suspended a couple of games for an academic reason or an off-the-court violation or something like that. But by creating this mystery around it, you almost get some level, I don't know if palace intrigue is the right term here necessarily, but when you've got one of the biggest players in the sport and the biggest names in the sport, and you're not giving any information like that, it does allow the rumor mill to run sort of wild, which does not feel fair to the player necessarily.
You're right, because then it goes into something we've talked about as well, is you're creating more questions about a situation.
Right.
Which a lot of, but I mean, I get all that, but I'm still all for a coach not divulging things that are going on. And I don't know what other. And the other thing is, too, which is different than the NFL. In the NFL, there's a responsibility to be in front of the media, right, and answer questions. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know. I don't know if that same responsibility is to college players. If there's a responsibility that they have to go in front of the media, or you can basically just say, Angel Reese is not talking, or our players aren't talking, and just the coach is talking. Or in the NFL, players have to talk. They get fined if they don't go in front of the media. So that could be a difference as well.
Well, yeah, that came up too when Caleb Williams elected to not go to the podium after the UCLA game, and everyone raised arms about that, because now you've got money in college sports, but they're not actually salaried employees and they're not being paid by the school, and so there's not some collectively bargained responsibility to go out there and appear in front of the media. So I don't, and again, we don't know so much. I don't know what to put on Angel Reese. I certainly don't put that portion on her, right? Not speaking to the media when you're not a paid employee of the school. To me, that's perfectly fine. I understand all that, but the dealing and the rest of it just felt very odd. And again, I really don't know what the right answer is, because I'm with you. There's part of me that goes, all right, if this really was something where we don't know the extent of what's gone on, you are protecting the player and you are keeping anything more from coming out, because once we get past this now, and if she's back and there's no more interruptions of the season, we're going to forget about this very easily, especially if she's going out there balling like she did last night. But if anything else does pop up and there's this lack of clarity, then you just invite more and more conversation about a household name at this point in Angel Reese. So that became the difficult part there. It was great to see her back in that game, Dad. And very interesting after all this to see her and Kim Mulkey kind of coexisting peacefully up at the podium. It was win number 700 for Kim Mulkey. And I think I saw Angel, at least in the thumbnail, was the one kind of presenting the game ball to Kim Mulkey. So really trying to bury the hatchet quick on the backside if there was any animosity there.
Yeah, let's make no mistake. These are two A personalities. Without question. Yeah. We saw that. We knew that from Kim Mulkey in her career. And we saw that from Angel Reese coming to the end of last year when we had such an incredible finish in women's college basketball. So we both know the type of personalities. And normally in those situations, coaches win in college, especially as successful as she is. Coaches are going to win that. But you can see coach and player with personalities like that occasionally butting heads.
But that's the thing. We don't know if they were butting heads. We don't know anything about the nature of this. And so all of it is speculation in a way that, you're right, is maddening on the outside to some extent. And, man, I really wrestle with this one. I have a tough time with this one just because, again, Kim Mulkey is the actor at the center of this, and we know and have seen how she's operated in other situations before that. But in this case, all's well that ends well. We hope for the best for Angel Reese coming up for the rest of this season here. Coming up next, though, as we look ahead to the rest of this weekend here, we got a big one for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the post-Matt Canada era, trying to figure out what this offense and this team can look like as they've been afloat without much offense for most of the season. Patrick Peterson, their star corner, talks to us next.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. You are looking at the extensive resume of Steelers cornerback Patrick Peterson. So 5th overall selection of the 2011 draft, 3-time first-team All-Pro, 8-time Pro Bowler, NFL 2010s All-Decade Team. What a guy. So though our guys had a chance to catch up with him earlier this week and talk about the Steelers season and what we can look forward to moving forward.
Very excited to talk to Patrick Peterson here, Pittsburgh Steelers defensive back, all-pro defensive back. You've been around forever at this point. We were reminiscing before coming on the call. I realized that you and I were in the same U.S. Army All-American Bowl class, and life has gone a little bit different on the football field for both of us since then. So how you doing, man? Good to see you.
I'm doing great. Life is definitely not what I imagine it being right now, but I'm definitely blessed to be in the position that I am in, playing my 13th season with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So I was going to bring that up. I played 9, and at some point I realized, wow, I've been in this league for a while. You just mentioned 13 years. When you're in downtime or alone time, do you ever go like, man, this either flew by or maybe it didn't for you, but 13 years?
Yeah, it definitely felt like it flew by because the way my body feels. I'm 33 years old, played 13 years. I think I'm right now at 196 or 7 games. Can't remember the exact number. But it doesn't feel, like that it's my time to, start passing it on. So the body and mental standpoint is in phenomenal in phenomenal shape. And I just want to continue staying in that mindset and just play as long as the wheels fall off.
There you go. Well, it's working out well for you, and it's worked out well for the Steelers. I want to ask you the question I think is on everyone's mind looking at your guys' football team. how do you keep doing this? Everyone's mentioned the stats about point differential and getting outscored during games, and yet everyone looks up and you guys are always above 500. You're right in the playoff hunt now. So what is the Pittsburgh Steelers secret as you've now been a part of this organization?
The secret is there is no secret. Coach just does a great job of putting us in position throughout OTAs, throughout minicamp, training camp, when we're up there in St. Vincent and Latrobe. So we understand what it takes to win ball games. Like Coach always talk about, we're in the business of winning. I don't care how the win comes, just as long as we win the ball game. And like I said, Coach does a great job of putting us through situations throughout minicamp, throughout OTAs, and throughout training camp to where when those situations present themselves, we're more than ready.
How do you view your role in this team? What have you and Mike Tomlin talked about since you've gotten here about how the way you guys both see your role in this defense?
Well, when I first got here, when I first signed here in April, Coach told me that he wanted to explore some of my talents in other positions. I never had an opportunity to do that in my career. So when he, presented that opportunity to me, I was like, heck yeah, I'm all in for that, because I always felt as being a corner, it kind of get boring just guarding a receiver outside the numbers, going to the left side of the field, play in and play out. I just feel like I can give so much more to the game, not only on the mentorship side of it or helping the young guys come up along, but also be more involved into the game plan, because I just feel like I have so much intellect about the game and how offenses want to attack us and certain points. I just feel like I can be used in so many more positions on the field, and Coach Tomlin has given me that opportunity to explore that. So it's a blessing in disguise. Like I tell Coach all the time, I'm so happy and blessed to be here, finally be here.
Pat, as one of the vets in this locker room, I'm sure you've kind of got a pulse on everything, not just defense, but also offensively. We know offensively they dealt with Matt Canada being let go here and finally got over that 400-yard hump this week. Did you notice something different about them? Was there something about the offense that stood out as maybe a change since that?
In practice, it's kind of hard to see because obviously we're on the practice field or trying to go over our adjustments while the offense is on the going over their plays. But just to see those guys from the sideline Sunday, I like what I saw by having receivers on motion, trying to identify coverages on the back end, trying to make Kenny's job a little bit more easier. We're going to run it anyway. We showed that. We proved that Sunday. And we had an opportunity to get our pass catchers involved. It was good to see Pat get over 100 yards. Deontay, make big third down catches for us. GP continuing to do the things that he's been doing for us all year down the field. So, the sky's the limit for us, man. We just want to continue to keep this train on the track and keep it rolling with a full head of steam and just see where it takes us.
You mentioned Deontay. I know there was some headlines about him maybe not going after a fumble, and I won't ask you to divulge family business. I know Mike Tomlin said that he addressed that in front of you guys and the rest of the team. Did you feel like that was something that he needed to do? Was that something that guys noticed when it happened in the game?
I was on the sideline, and I didn't notice it, in the game until obviously we saw it all over Instagram. But as Coach always talk about, you just always have to be ready because you never know when something like that is going to happen. And that's why we practice so much, in practice of scooping every loose ball, because you never know if it's a fumble or if it's not a fumble. And you just never want to leave it in the official hands to make the right call.
So looking at the Cardinals this week, the team you were drafted by and played there until 2020, first off, is there anything to playing your old team? Is there anything more to that, even though you've been away from it for a couple of years?
You always want to, put up a good performance against your previous team, so yeah, I want to have a great game Sunday. It's nothing against those guys, but, there are some plays that, that I feel that I could make coming Sunday, and I won't necessarily say it's going to be any added fire or any added fuse or anything like that. I just want to make sure that, I play, one of my best games all year and just show them that I still can play.
And talk about playing now that Kyler Murray is back, a quarterback that can create. All of a sudden, it's a regular play, and next thing you know, you're kind of in the playground, kind of making something up on the fly of what kind of position that puts you as a defensive back in.
Man, it's always difficult, when you have an opportunity to play up against dual threat quarterback, because like you said, Mike, they have the opportunity to create. And, as a defensive back, in our head, we have like that internal clock of, the play is going to be anywhere between, 2 to 4 seconds. Anything after that, like you said, now it's backyard playground football, and the receiver will have the upper hand on us, because now he pretty much can run anywhere on the field where he feels there is an open spot. But I will say this, man, we have two of the best, if not the best, edge rushers in the business. We do a great job of creating havoc in the quarterback pocket. So I have no doubt in my mind that the guys up front will make our job a little bit easier, for those extra plays that Kyler will want to have to create extra time to pass the ball.
So it sounds like TJ Watt's got your Defensive Player of the Year vote.
Oh, no doubt about it. Hands down. Best defensive player.
Well, he's been doing great work on the field. You guys all have. I know, Pat, in the short time you've been in Pittsburgh, you're already doing a lot of great stuff off the field there, too. You've got an event coming up next Tuesday, P2's Presence. What can you tell us about what you got going on there locally to help out the kids?
Yeah, it's going to be a shot with a jock at the local Target here. We're going to have about 50 kids. I don't know exactly where the kids are coming from just yet. If I'm not mistaken, I know it's a boys and girls club that we did over a couple of years ago, but I'm going to give the kids $150 worth of a gift card. They can go out and just shop and buy whatever they feel that they would need, or a family member, or a sibling or a friend. And to me, that's the most pleasing part when I do the shop with the jocks, is when I go shopping with these kids. They never tend to pick out anything for themselves. They always getting something for their brother. They're getting something for their mom. And for me to have that giving spirit during that time, and for them to have that giving spirit in that time when they don't even have to, when someone is trying to help them, it just makes me feel that much pleased. And every year just brings a big smile to my face.
It's a great job out of you. I mean, you have the platform and you're using it in such a positive way. Football is great. You're going to go down as one of the all-time greats, but man, helping others has to make you feel even better.
No doubt about it, especially in this time of the year. It's nothing like the seasons, man.
No, there's no doubt about it. Well, there's nothing like the football season, and it's been fun watching you guys. Best of luck this weekend, Pat. Thanks for joining us, man. Hopefully we'll get to talk to you again soon.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. It's Friday, and you know what that means. The big stupid hat is out for the Week 13 Acrostic. Yes, the hat is back, and you know what? It's going to stay in the office so that I don't forget it again. So what would the Golic Acrostic be without a poem, right? Okay, so here we go. G is for if backup Flacco will still be elite. O is for whether or not the Ravens can be beat. L is for the Panthers getting a boost from firing Frank. I is for which team on the bubble can join the playoff ranks. C is for 2 NFC teams that are in the zone. Now let's hope Senior can get through this segment without passing a kidney stone.
Well
We had
well
to.
done.
Bravo.
As my dad in the middle of this last break is reading us all the different home remedies and advice he's gotten on passing the stone properly, Dad, you've gotten some interesting ones thrown your way.
Bath in Epsom salt and then lay on the side that the stone is on. That'll help it pass down. Real lemon juice, as to which then Jesse asked, where do you put the lemon juice? That's a loaded question. Okay, I want no part of that. But right now, every time I have to go pee, it's like I'm bracing, right? I'm bracing for what, because the doctor said you may not feel anything, but I may feel something. So every time I'm going into the bathroom, I'm like, is this the one? Is this the one?
Just
and
afraid to pee. Pee shot.
I am.
You're playing Russian roulette with the most important gun in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm a little afraid to pull the trigger.
Okay.
Understandably so. By the way, the results of our poll from yesterday is passing kidney stones as painful as childbirth. The number one answer that received votes with an overwhelming 48.7% was stop comparing the two.
Yes. Thank you. Like I said, we can't do this.
No.
Unsurprisingly, second leading voter was yes, in parentheses, I'm a man, with 28.3%. So men walking in with the unbridled confidence that comes with a penis to this party to give an answer that nobody else should condone.
Yeah. If
I mean,
you
guys,
have one,
just stay
you
away
shouldn't
from
be
this
giving
one.
an opinion. So
Yeah, guys, it's exactly right, guys. Stay away from this one. Just that's what I had to tell the doctor when he came in and told me, I heard it's worth the childbirth. I said, dude, we can't say that.
Yeah.
Don't ever say that in public.
Well, to people who want to say that, I should say let's find another metric, like getting shot in the stomach. So why don't we shoot you in the stomach, and then we can you can decide if it's more or less painful.
Well, again, for those who may not have heard, Jesse has done both, has given birth and has passed the kidney stone. And as she said, and this really sums it up. A kidney stone is about 3 millimeters. A baby is 7 to 9 pounds. End of story, right?
Yeah, that's all you gotta say. You're afraid. You're afraid to pee that thing out. Let me tell you, buddy.
Hell yeah, brother. The human body, what a magical instrument. Can make little baby and can also make rock. We are truly capable of so much. What magical creatures human beings are. Let's see if we can make coherent arguments for NFL picks going into this weekend and start with the acrostic. We've got G, the Golic NFL weekend preview acrostic. Give them a shot. We got a bunch of new backups in the last couple of weeks here. We're not talking about the guys like Gardner Minshew that have been there all season long, or even Zach Wilson, who's kind of a weird middle ground between the two. Joe Flacco, Tim Boyle, Bailey Zappi, and Malik Cunningham. Jake Browning, who's taken over for the Cincinnati Bengals in relief of an injured Joe Burrow. Dad, do any of these guys have a shot this weekend at pulling something off?
So when I look at this group, I don't look at them necessarily as what they're going to do. I look at what's around them, and that leads me to Joe Flacco. Even though Joe Flacco is obviously a bit of a statue playing back there, the one thing they have is the number one defense in the NFL by yards per game. Okay, number 3, and they play pretty well, against the pass as well. But their defense, as we said, is always going to keep them in the game. Offensively, they're third in the NFL rushing the ball. That takes a lot off the plate of the quarterback and can help with play action pass. So I look at the surrounding area of what can maybe help the backup quarterback the most. When you look at now, Jake Browning has some great weapons on offense. The defense isn't as good as Cleveland's defense. There's no offense in New England, so good luck there, even though your defense is hovering around like the top 10 defense. So I would go with Joe Flacco because of the supporting cast, I guess I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I would agree in that one. He's got the best chance of being dragged to success by the rest of that Cleveland Browns team. It sounds like they'll get Denzel Ward back on defense, which would be huge for them going up against that Rams wide receiver room. But, Dan, I do want to think about this on the other side because I think Flacco's the right answer among that group is who would it be most catastrophic for to lose, and why is it overwhelmingly the Los Angeles Chargers? Like, if you're Brandon Staley and you somehow get clipped by the Malik Cunningham, Bailey Zappi, or even if it was Mac Jones, like, there is no version of the world that exists where I think Brandon Staley could keep his job with a loss against this current iteration. And I don't expect them to lose. I expect them to beat this Patriots team pretty handily because I just don't think there's no one coming for the New England Patriots. There's nobody that's going to come and change what's been an abject disaster for them offensively. I think we've seen that as they've tried to shuffle the deck at quarterback. So that would be the most catastrophic, but I'm with you. Joe Flacco, God, always finding his way back into the limelight here for a disaster of a quarterback season for the Cleveland Browns. Let's get to, Jesse, offensive improvement and talk to our friend Ken. We talked to Patrick Peterson on the defensive side of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's hear from Kenny Pickett in the offensive side.
I think the flow was good. I thought the setup we had throughout the week was good, and the game day operations with me and Coach Sully and then talking on the sideline amongst the other coaches was smooth. Obviously, it can get better, something we're going to continue to try and iron out, but I thought for a first time out, it was good. The chunk plays were there. That was good. I thought we, had some really good drives, working on some long fields. When we got to the red zone, we just had a negative play or a penalty. We felt like that it kind of took us out of that rhythm, that really good rhythm that we were having. So, if we get that fixed, the points will follow.
There he was.
I tell you what.
Go ahead, GoJo. Tell me what.
we're doing great today. I was just going to say, in the post-Matt Canada world, if you were looking for things to reinforce what Steelers fans all felt about their departed offensive coordinator, you couldn't ask for two better spots for get-right games, because the Arizona Cardinals waltzing into town defensively, Dad, have been giving it up however anybody wants it, and this Pittsburgh Steelers team that's been a legitimately good running team with Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris in that backfield does have an opportunity against the Cardinals back end that can also be had to try and keep developing some of those shot plays, especially to the tight end room.
Yeah, you wonder, does a team like the Ravens pick up a Zach Ertz, who was released from the Arizona Cardinals? Now that Mark Andrews is out, we'll see if anybody tries to add a piece like this. But if we're talking about offensive improvement, I'd like to question, are the Steelers the biggest threat to in the AFC North? I don't think so, Mike. I'm still going to say the Cleveland Browns. They're starting Joe Flacco at quarterback, man. They have the same record. They split through the year. Even with Joe Flacco as quarterback, that Pittsburgh offense got over 400 yards for the first time in 58 games. They're not scaring anybody. And again, I'll go with supporting cast. The Browns' defense will keep you in every game. The Browns' running attack will help you control the ball. I go to supporting cast here, and the supporting cast in Cleveland, in my opinion, is better than the supporting cast for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I go Cleveland Browns here.
Man, once you have Joe Flacco under center as your starter and are pulling the e-brake like that in the middle of the season, I start to have some questions, because eventually those things do affect the defense and how they perform if you start to have that big of an imbalance when you run into some tougher teams. And the interesting thing for the Steelers in this, Dad, and I heard Dominique Foxworth bring this up on Mina's podcast the other day, is when you get a new voice in the room, like the Steelers got on offense, splitting up the coordinator duties amongst a couple of their offensive assistants, it kind of begins as a new portion of your season. This is week one for them in learning there. With every coach, there's different things that they harp on, even under a system that's not going to change all that much, and the Steelers' tendencies didn't change all that much, but you're learning someone's game day tendencies now for the first and second time as a coordinator. You're learning how someone operates during the week in those same ways with those added responsibilities. And with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the way we said there's no one coming to help the New England Patriots because there's not weapons. We'll talk about Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers too. The Steelers we always looked at as a mismanagement of resources, right? You look at the guys there, Deontay Johnson, you look at the rest of that receiver room, George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, the backfield that we just talked about, and even Kenny Pickett. We felt like there were at least talented players in there that could be given a different opportunity with a fresh start. And so that's the only reason I look at the Steelers a little bit differently. Yes, defensively they struggle, but also Mike Tomlin's voodoo magic, whatever's gone on here, that to me with a team that's infinitely healthier than their Browns counterpart right now has me probably leaning their way while Joe Flacco is the starter in Cleveland.
And quite honestly, right now, I mean, they're both in the playoffs right now. So even if they don't win the division, they'll both at this point be wild cards. So we could have 3 from the AFC North, which I think we'll end up having.
Yeah, we said that the AFC North would be the most competitive division in football at the beginning of the year. We did not imagine it would look like this when it happened necessarily. So stranger things have happened, and stranger things, Jesse, have happened for the Carolina Panthers. Let's get to Bryce Young, Carolina, and the changes that they've made heading into this week.
Yeah, let's win it for Chris. How about that? Let's hear what they had to say about this.
Just be a pro. And it's part of being a pro, and that's how I look at it. So where I understand, because there's just been a slight change in some things, we're still playing football. I told them we're out on the grass, and we're playing a kids' game played by grown men. So let's have some fun while we do it.
That line.
Really diving into the bag of cliches early.
It's a kid's game. Just go out and enjoy yourselves.
That's why
that's the ultimate restart.
He's just a man of the people.
Wow.
He is. It's unbelievable. That's textbook, man, we're on a bad team. Like, I remember being in November of a couple of, like, my early seasons at Notre Dame when we were a 500 team chasing things like the Hawaii Bowl or the, whatever the Motor City Bowl in Detroit was. You get to November, and there's some of those days where you got to fake the funk going into practice, and you're just like, man, we get to be out here playing football with our friends. Like, who's got it better than us? As you all lie to each other. You're cold. You're upset. Your team sucks. Like, you're doing whatever you can to try and get over this. Dad, is there any reason we talked about some of the newness on teams making changes during the season? Do you get any bump from having a new voice in that room now that Frank Reich is out of there?
I do think emotion can change. I think we saw that with the Raiders when Josh McDaniels was out and Antonio Pierce took over, winning their first couple of games. But let's also talk about the difference there. You have arguably the best wide receiver in the league. You had the league's leading rusher the year before, and you have one of the best pass rushers in the league on defense. Let's go to Carolina. You have, and that's it. I mean, the talent just isn't there compared in that comparative situation. So while it may feel a little different now, I don't think that the locker room was anywhere near like it was in the Raiders with Josh McDaniels, when all you hear about is Bill Belichick assistants going on to be head coaches and the locker room just being horrid. See Matt Patricia in Detroit. I don't think it's like that with Frank Reich. I don't think a locker room is like, oh my God, just so dejected and waiting for a change. So I don't think it's like that at all. And the fact is Carolina just doesn't have a lot of talent right now. So no, I'm really not expecting a lot of difference there.
No, there is the cupboard is bare right now. That's not going to change during this time. You're absolutely right about the talent afforded to guys, again, like Kenny Pickett, like what we saw with the Las Vegas Raiders. There's just a difference in what they walked into the party with, and that's not going to change. Now, if not now, then when? Because this Buccaneers defense has been bad this year. They're 27th in EPA per dropback this season. They're middle of the pack with 31 sacks. And so if you're a team that struggled to protect your quarterback and struggled to push the ball downfield to anyone not named Adam Thielen, if you can't do it this week and find a way, you're probably not going to do it most any week. So I struggle to see any light at the end of the tunnel for Carolina this season, and they walk into the offseason with some big-time questions that they have to answer. But, Dad, let's get to 3 of the favorite words in sports in the hunt. Which NFL bubble teams actually have a shot of getting into the post? And we got some juice in the NFC and the AFC playoff picture based on what's happened with a couple of these teams. Dad, in the AFC, you've got the Colts, Texans, Broncos, and Bills all sitting with 6 wins currently that are very exciting. And then on the NFC side, you've got the Seahawks, Vikings, Packers, and Rams, who For the Rams, Matt Stafford coming back in the last 2 games has completely changed the tone for that team on offense. Kyron Williams in the backfield for them too. But let's start with the AFC, Dad, and that playoff picture. Colts, Texans, Broncos, and Bills. Who do you give the best chance and the best opportunity of that group as you knock your headphones off there? What are you doing? Figure it out.
Knocked my headphones off. I mean, like
thought you were passing the stone for a second mid-segment there, about to freak out and run.
No. If I'm going to pass a stone, you'll know because you'll hear, ah! Then you'll know I passed a stone. All right. In the AFC, I am going to go with the Denver Broncos. And, boy, we talk about 2 of the teams that we just mentioned. They in Houston play this week. But I go with Denver, and a lot of it is, how are you doing right now? We never would have thought this earlier in the season. Russell Wilson in the offense playing well. The defense is absolute money right now. And you look at the rest of their schedule, you have the Texans this week, Chargers, Lions, Patriots, Chargers again, and then the Raiders. So I think it's doable for them. I would go between the Broncos and the Texans, but I'll take the Broncos because they're really hitting a high note right now.
I'll go the Texans just because I trust their quarterback a little bit more. Russell Wilson has been good all season long, and he's just been that. It's not been great. It's not been anything else. They're going to have to win a lot of games close to the vest, and I do worry about what happens when some of the turnovers that defense has thrived on dry up a little bit, if that happens down the stretch of the season. So give me the good vibes, Texans. We've been enjoying that run all year long. I don't think C.J. Stroud hits that same rookie wall. We saw a little bit last week of the danger of holding on to the ball a little bit too long, some of those things that have popped up. I'll go with them there, and then the NFC, Dad, I think this is a pretty easy answer in the Green Bay Packers. They've got the 4th easiest remaining schedule in the NFL according to FTN, and Jordan Love, is playing some phenomenal football right now. Looks like he is clearly going to get a chance to be the answer for the Packers going on past this season. And while they've got a big challenge, their biggest test by far this weekend against the Kansas City Chiefs, after that the road gets pretty easy, and I think they're playing good enough football to overcome some of the injuries we've even seen in the backfield and elsewhere.
To me, it's between Green Bay and Minnesota. Minnesota going to get Justin Jefferson back, I think, which is huge. But they have the quarterback merry-go-round. While I think Dobbs will still be the starter, other 2 are available as well. So that gives me a reason to look at Minnesota. But I think because Jordan Love is playing well right now, I think I would give a slight edge at this point to the Green Bay Packers as well.
All right, let's get to the C-Dad Champ Game preview, or really a review. The Eagles and the 49ers play as a rematch of the NFC title from last year. Who needs this game more? To me, I went back and forth a lot on, Dad, but ultimately landed with the 49ers just because of the backdrop of last season. There was so much public griping from this 49ers roster about what would have happened had they not been down to Christian McCaffrey moonlighting at quarterback at the end of that game. They get a chance now. This 49ers team is as healthy as they've been for the vast majority of the season. We know what the infusion of Chase Young has done to that defensive production, averaging 5 sacks a game over the last 3 since the trade deadline, getting their opportunity here against the Philadelphia Eagles. So I would say the 49ers need this because I thought about what Philadelphia has got to do, right? People saying they're not playing as well as they did last year, having concerns about them. Their last 3 weeks, they've beaten the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Chiefs, and the Bills. What more can they do to prove to people? Winning this game isn't going to prove to people any more about this Eagles team than they've already gone out there and done.
I agree with that. The only thing that added to it was with the Cowboys win last night. If the Eagles were to lose this game, they go into Dallas next week. If they lose that game, they would be tied in the loss column with the Cowboys, and they would have split for the season. All of a sudden, the good lead they had in the East would be gone. So that changed it a little bit for me, but I'll still go with San Francisco, who, again, if they win this game, that doesn't make up for the fact that of the NFC Championship game, which would have got you to the Super Bowl. But their thought process is, we had a diamond in the rough in Brock Purdy, who we found was playing great, that got to throw 4 passes in that game before he hurt his elbow. And then, as you mentioned, it's Christian McCaffrey at the quarterback position. So they feel their best foot wasn't forward in that one, and they're as healthy as they've been now. So I agree with you. I think this is more on San Francisco. Plus, like you said, they've been chirping a little bit about this one.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of big narrative energy on this one. Certainly no love lost between these two teams who both similarly, right, had quarterbacks now Brock Purdy to the umpteenth degree as Mr. Irrelevant, but there weren't a lot of people predicting this kind of success for Jalen Hurts either in Philadelphia since he came over there. And there's probably even still some people that doubt him right now as he's been playing banged up through a knee injury this season. So two of the NFC's best quarterbacks squaring off there. One of the best stars and heartthrobs in the history of TV joins us next.
To GoJo and Golic. For many of us, this may be a shock to the system, but the show One Tree Hill, the iconic show, turned 20 this year. That's right. And while that fact might be depressing, I have some good news. Earlier this week, we all got a chance to catch up with One Tree Hill star Chad Michael Murray about the iconic show, his new show, and his love for the Buffalo Bills.
All right, very excited. For a lot of us here, Jesse Cofield sitting on the interview, it is that big right now as we welcome in actor, heartthrob, all-around great guy, Chad Michael Murray, kind enough to join us now. Chad, thank you so much for the time. We're excited to talk to you about the partnership that you got going on with Linnell S2. First and foremost, I feel like I need to do a check-in here. Big-time Buffalo Bills fan. Has not been the season you guys have been looking forward to. So how are we feeling right now about the team in Western New York?
I think I'm probably different than most. I'm actually feeling really good. I think I saw so much fight in them against the Eagles. And, you know, right now the Eagles stand at, 10-1. It's the top team in the league. They went toe-to-toe. And, you know, if A.J. Brown has 2 feet in the end zone and the ball's knocked out, it's a touchdown. But 2 feet in the game of play, knocked out, not a fumble. I don't know, maybe something was a little confusing there. But I think the Bills played that game well. They got a tough road ahead. And if they can battle test themselves, man, I'd be afraid if I was anyone seeing them in the wild card. That's all.
Yeah, in all honesty, if Gabe Davis and Josh Allen are on the same page in overtime, that game's over and they win it. So, but that didn't happen. So the bigger question, growing up a Bills fan, have you ever worn condiment and jumped on and broken a table?
I have not worn condiment, although I have sprayed Pinto Ron. And I've never crushed a table, but I've watched plenty of people do it, even light themselves on fire to do it. But I'll tell you, nobody parties like the Bills Mafia, and I think you guys know that.
Do you have a favorite all-time Buffalo Bill? Like, does Josh Allen crack that? Where are you on your guy's current quarterback? Is he starting to work his way into that? Because he seems like the quintessential Buffalo Bill. He seems to fit the team really well.
You know, he does. He really does. You know, the thing for me with Josh is he just has that homegrown hero mentality. He's going to do everything. He's a workhorse. You know, he's going to power through and give it his all. Plus, he's not the kind of guy walking around with a major inflated ego that needs to be at, you know, said nightclub and be seen here, there. You know, I think a lot goes into what city you play for. If you're playing in Los Angeles or Miami or New York or one of these major cities, there's a lot of distractions. And I think Buffalo is the perfect home for him because I don't think that would affect him at all, even if he was in a major city. But we don't have that. That's not what we're about. He's there to win, bring a championship.
Chad, as an actor, you've played a bunch of sports in different movies and shows and stuff. Which sport were you best at?
Football. Hands down.
Did you play quarterback?
Man, I chucked the ball around for 11 years. Now I'm working with my son, who he just has something. So we're just nurturing it as much as he wants to nurture it. He put the pads on and did really well, dominated. We went 6-1 in the regular season.
Oh.
So,
do you coach? Are you strictly a sports dad here? What's your style?
I'm all in. I'm all in. You know, it's funny because you have so many dads that go out there, right? But a lot of them don't necessarily understand the game to a certain degree. Over the years, you take what you love, and I've been blessed to spend a lot of time around some NFL greats. Mike, I'm sure you played with Jim back in the day, Jim Kelly and Thurman and Bruce, and I've grown great relationships with these guys over the years, so I can watch it through an NFL guy's eyes now a little bit. And so I just take everything that I've learned from everybody else and apply it to the young kids that I'm working with now, and I'm sure as he grows, he'll outgrow my football IQ, and he'll surpass me and go, Dad, we don't do that anymore. We don't do that. So
yeah, that's so true. I've chased Jim Kelly around more than a few times on the field. Quickly, one more on the sports side. For Mike and I, former football players, and we also call games as well. But when we watch football, we can't really watch it as a fan. We're always kind of analyzing as former players. When you watch a TV show or a movie as an actor, can you watch as a fan, or are you watching as an actor and critiquing?
I'm in the same boat as you. It's hard. It's difficult. It's funny. Where I tend to be more of a fan is in animation because I'm not watching human beings be on, right? When I watch certain films, it's great when I can have that departure. You know, when you watch and you don't see the edits and you don't see the oopsies, be it, or you don't see an actor trying. I love it when I get that departure. I think there was a movie, La La Land. La La Land gave me that. It was such a love letter to Hollywood and the whole thing. That gave me that departure. Watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that movie gives me that departure. And there's a bunch that I can literally watch and sit back, but I still analyze them. Every aspect, where they're shooting, what they're shooting, how they're executing every scene, intent. Yeah, you get it. You get it.
So I feel like we've asked you a lot of sports and general questions like that. Jesse is our resident massive One Tree Hill fan, and so I'd be remiss if I didn't let her get some question that she's had. She's been looking forward to this all week. So Jesse, whatever you've got to ask on the One Tree Hill front here, the floor is yours.
Well, you just had your 20th anniversary reunion with everybody. So just quickly take us into what that was like reuniting with the whole cast.
Awesome. We've really kept in touch for the most part over the last 20 years. It's crazy to think it's been 20 years. It goes by so fast. But yeah, getting together with all the guys and everybody, just hugging it out. And, you know, our goal was this year to do a big charity basketball game. We're going to get the Ravens back together. This year I could play because my hip had healed. I had hip surgery last year. And they put together a game last year that was uber successful. So what we wanted to do was open that up and put it online for the world to watch so we could raise money for St. Jude's. That was the idea. But with the SAG strike and everything that was going on, we just couldn't pull it off, wearing the jerseys. And it would feel cheap, right? So maybe soon. It's coming. It's coming. We're working on it. We're going to get everybody back out there and hope no one, breaks an ankle.
Yeah. All right.
Pulls an hammy.
There we go. Well, listen, if you're looking for announcers to call that basketball game if and when it goes down here, if you need some extra voices, we got you covered on this. All right, brother?
I'm going to hold you to it, Mike. I'm holding you to it.
There we go. Awesome. Well, we're looking very much forward to that. But, Chad, we also want to hear about the partnership you've got going on with Linnell S2. What can you tell us about the work that you are doing in conjunction with them right now?
Well, I think we have a big issue going on that we talk about all the time, and I just feel like we could bring more awareness to it, which is school safety. All right, I've got kids. I got 3 kids. I grew up playing multiple various characters in high school, so I understand this form very well. But to talk about school safety is something that we all have to open up, and it's a hard conversation to have. It's a hard conversation to have with your children because you're afraid. You don't want to scare them. You don't want them going into school and being afraid of everything, but you want to educate them so that they can be aware, from knowing a particular adult to always be in contact with, to ask questions to be aware of things. And Linnell S2 and I, they put together an unbelievable package. They're trying to get resources out there for parents, administrators, communities to spread the word, because it starts with us, right? If other things aren't going to happen, then we got to take it in our own hands to keep our kids safe. I always find it ironic. Every bank you go into in this country has got an armed guard or 2, cameras everywhere, watching every single diabolical move for people stealing paper. That's all numbered, mind you, and can be traced and deleted. However, the most important thing in our entire world, our children are kind of, I don't want to say sitting ducks because that's an exaggeration, but they're just out there and there's no security. And I understand that these things all cost money. So we got to talk about it. We got to bring things to the table. We got to talk about what we care about.
Couldn't have said it better. Got to talk about what we care about, and it's great to hear that you guys are trying to do just that. We could sit here and talk to you for hours. We really appreciate the time. We know you got a lot going on, but thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to calling that basketball game when you get the band back together. We can't wait.
I'm holding you to it. You're going to see a few air balls, so just be generous. Be nice. Be nice.
There we go. Favorable calls for you. We appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Chad.
All right. Cheers, y'all.
from a man who is decidedly thin in Chad Michael Murray to something chunky, which is a lot more of our speed here. It's time to get to our chunky, spicy pick of the week. The spiciest pick of the week is presented by Campbell's Chunky. We are predicting the spiciest player heading into the Sunday slate of games coming up this weekend. So, Dad, as you are old and bearing a kidney stone right now, I'll let you go first just in case the stone decides to rear its ugly head.
I'm going with the spiciest player on the spiciest matchup of the weekend. I'm going with Brock Purdy of the 49ers. So we talked about this game earlier and how San Francisco's, chirping a little bit about if they would have had Brock, they had won the NFC Championship game and represented in the Super Bowl. Now it's a monster game for both teams right now. And I'm going to go with Brock Purdy because this is Brock Purdy's first, hopefully, full game against Philadelphia. He got 4 passes in last year. He was 4 for 4 before he hurt his elbow, and then the 49ers went through their litany of quarterbacks, eventually getting smoked in that game as Philadelphia went on to the Super Bowl. So that's my spicy player of the week. Brock Purdy actually playing the entire game, at least we think so, and what he can do for the 49ers who are playing some of their best ball right now.
Yeah, and we know they're great at attacking the middle and deep portion of the field with guys like Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, and that's exactly where Philly's had a lot of trouble all year. So, I think that's going to be a really interesting test for that Philadelphia defense because right now we've seen when the 49ers are fully healthy and you've got Deebo out there and you've got Trent Williams and you've got George Kittle, it all works well. We can criticize them for the fact that you've got that many all-pros, and if 1 or 2 go down, all of a sudden the picture starts to look different. But the bottom line is that's the reality right now. Health is a huge determinant in this league, and they're walking into this one feeling pretty good about where they're at there. So that's a good pick. I'm not going to lie, Dad, after last week I was reeling a little bit. The Dorian Thompson-Robinson pick didn't fare all that well. Yeah. And so I needed to go fishing in a stocked pond this week. And so I looked and said, all right, what's the easiest dub right now in the NFL? Pass rushing against the Washington Commanders. Sam Howell's the most sacked quarterback in the NFL right now. Went and looked on DraftKings Sportsbook, and Bradley Chubb is sitting there with the over-under at 3/4 of a sack in this game at plus 100 for the over. He had a couple of quarterback hits last week in a game where against a similarly beat-up Jets offensive line, Dad, the Miami Dolphins knocked 7 sacks in that game. Now, there is a lot higher ceiling on the Commanders' offense on the other side, but they're going to take some sacks. And now that you're dealing without Jalen Phillips, who unfortunately they lost to injury for the rest of the season on that D-line, you look down and Christian Wilkins is the leading sacker remaining on that team with 6.5, but Bradley Chubb's right there below him. He's 4th in the NFL in terms of edge players and pass rush win rate, so how quickly and how often he beats the offensive lineman in under 2.5 seconds. And I think all those things led me to believe, given the opponent, he's due for a big game to try and help offset some of that loss, as that Dolphins defense and offense should both have a chance to eat this week.
I just start thinking of Sam Howell, and never would you sit there and say a connection between Sam Howell and Shedeur Sanders. Sam Howell's been sacked 55 times. Shedeur Sanders was sacked 52 times and missed the last game. So he would have been sacked probably more than 55 times if he played in the last game. Those two quarterbacks, the beatings that those guys have taken, because again, when you talk about sacks, multiply that by 2 or 3 as the amount of times you get hit as you're releasing the ball, and where it's not a sack, but you just get hit. The beatings that they are taking, so that's a fair one there. Talk about, you're right about fishing in stocked waters.
Yeah, exactly. Needed a dub this week, so we're trying to get on the board here. Again, those are our spiciest picks of the week presented by Campbell's Chunky heading into this weekend. Dad, I'd be remiss if on a show with a father and son we didn't talk about this. I saw in the NBA interesting comments, Jesse, from one LeBron James, as we got the good news that it sounds like his son Bronny is getting closer and closer to make his debut for the USC Trojans.
Yeah, and LeBron said he was willing to skip something kind of important to go see it.
I'm looking forward to his first game whenever he's cleared and whenever he's ready to have his first game. I already told my teammates that if they play on the same day we play, then I'm gonna have to catch them next game. So yeah, I told you I'm playing. Family over everything, champs. I love y'all. I definitely got to see Bronny's first, his college game whenever he's cleared and ready to go.
he really coordinate the groan from his teammates? Like, he told them beforehand, guys, when I say this, I need you all to groan in unison.
Yeah.
Yep. And he's like, I don't play. And they're all like, yeah, we know, you told us. Okay. I mean, fair enough. I get it. But also it is kind of hysterical that he's just like telling the Lakers, yeah, I'm skipping the game.
Well, yeah, so Bronny still has to pass another, I think, physical from the team. They play in Vegas on Saturday against Gonzaga, so he won't play there. Their next home game is December 10th against Long Beach before they go on the road for 4 games. Listen, it's cool. The cool thing is if you're a person in the position to go ahead and say, I'm going to miss a game to go watch my son, right? This usually comes up in like my wife is giving birth. Am I going to miss a game? Mike was born September 28th. So Mike was born during the season. And my wife had told me, she said, if I go into labor when you're at a game, if you're on the road at a game, you go play. I got this, you go play. And I can't sit there and say I would have done that. I can't sit there and say I would have played in the game or I would have come back and been with my wife for the birth of my child. And in this case, it was Mike. Now knowing Mike, I would have stayed and played the game for sure. But
I was just going to say, I feel like the decision's a lot easier now that you know me, too. The baby at that point, you have no idea what I could be. I could turn out to be a pretty nice guy, and instead you got this. So it probably was the smart decision to go play.
So I may have come back, and I may have missed the game. But that's always the big conversation now. I mean, when you're in LeBron's position, you can do that, right? I would imagine if it's the playoffs, he wouldn't have been doing that, though. But it's one game of 82, which can be an important game. Don't get me wrong. As far as me in this situation, I got fortunate in the situation that Mike and Mike became very popular, and Greeny and I were in a really good place where the show was. So that gave me a little bit of leeway because I was doing that show and I was doing college football on Saturdays. And I basically said, as soon as my kids are old enough to where they're playing those meaningful games on weekends, I am going to stop doing college games. And ESPN was nice enough to say, that's fine. I did Mike and Mike all week. I did some NFL live shows during the week, but I said on the weekends, I'm not doing anything. And doing Mike and Mike worked because I was over at 10 in the morning. When the kids were real young, I could be the lunch dad at their school. I got to coach them at the end of the day in their little league baseball, basketball, Sydney, and soccer. So I was fortunate to be able to do that, and then fortunate that ESPN let me not call college games. I took about a 10 or 15 year hiatus in that while watching Mike and Jake and Sydney do all their things. So, but to actually, if I actually had to call a game and it was one of their games, I don't know if ESPN would have been real hip on me saying, you know what, I'm not going to call this game. I'm going to go watch my kid's first game and whatever it was. I probably would have tried, in all honesty. I don't know how successful I'd have been. If you're LeBron James, though, that's pretty much a given. You can pretty much do or say whatever you want.
Yeah, it's like that line from The Wedding Singer. And since we let our first-class passengers do pretty much whatever they want, that's LeBron James on the Los Angeles Lakers at this juncture. And you do understand it, too, from his standpoint where, Dad, you talked about that showing up for us, just for a father and their kids. But also in this case for Bronny, given the backdrop of the fact that he had the cardiac arrest event back in July. This isn't just him making his collegiate debut, but it's him coming back from a very scary, real moment for this family, for Bronny, and so overcoming that to get back out on the court with everything, and that's excluding LeBron talking about wanting to play with Bronny and all the things that hang in the balance there. I have a feeling that also factors into making this an even more sentimental moment for everyone in the James family.
I wonder if he'll be able to just sit there, because you always saw in his high school or AAU games, he was very kind of moving around. I wonder how he'll be here in a college game. I wonder if he'll be up moving around, saying stuff to Bronny, or if he's just going to sit and watch like a parent.
Or if he'll wear the USC gear. LeBron James has always been an Ohio State basketball supporter. We'll see if that is family over everything and find out how far it goes. One thing I do know, there'll be enough cameras on him where we'll get answers to all these questions.
Yes, true.
I was trying to keep it together. And somehow a conversation around. So we were talking about LeBron James in the last segment, and it devolved into my dad. LeBron James said he'd skip a Lakers game to go to his son's first game. My dad was talking about how he forewent. I don't even know the words I'm using anymore. Stop calling college football games to come and be a more present dad with us, which included him being like a recess dad or a cafeteria dad, a term I've never heard before. I don't remember him actually doing as a kid. So sorry, Dad, that was probably wasted time with us because it didn't really leave much of a mark. And I'm just saying, I mean, at this point, like, I remember a lot of the other stuff. I remember you being at the games, and all that stuff was great. We really appreciated it. It left an indelible mark, there's no doubt. I'm just saying the recess dad part, like, I don't remember you being out there at recess. I didn't know parents were out there. I was busy trying to go and put up numbers and touch football.
Yeah, parents would go out there so the teachers could have a little time to themselves. There would be like usually at least one teacher out there. But
so
we would be out there.
Go smoke weed.
Yeah, we would be out there to make sure nobody got into trouble, or maybe to start a kid fight ring or something like that, and make sure everybody followed the rules. But no, I'd be out there just wandering around during recess, making sure nobody got hurt or making sure everything was running smoothly. I'm glad it was a core memory for you that Daddy wasn't there. I mean, what the hell is that?
He was busy playing with his friends on the playground.
Right. I was trying to be cool.
Well, Jesse, you didn't even know what it was. You didn't even understand. And what I was that you or no? Somebody else questioned it.
No, that wasn't me. I knew what that was. It was one of the guys in the back. It was Hoff. He didn't know what it was.
Totally knew what the recess dad was.
Yeah, you have to check in. They're acting like I just walked in the playground and watched kids. Yeah, that would go over well. I mean,
so we said you could start a child fight ring, we don't know. So that's why we were all hysterically laughing.
Yeah. Totally normal stuff around here as we head towards the finish line of this week of GoJo and Golic. We'll get to this, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to finish off your day in just a moment. But first, we got to tell you about our great friends over at Wrangler. Wrangler jean shirts and jackets made for the ride of life. Whether you're going out there and enjoying those cooler days and longer nights in styles that'll keep you warm, comfortable, moving, and looking great no matter where you are, you can wear Wrangler jeans literally anywhere, at work, out at night, playing a pickup game with your friends, out being the recess dad, starting a child fight ring, or watching the game on TV. They're that comfortable and that durable. There's Wrangler shirt for every occasion, casual tees, snaps, button-ups. Layer them together for a little bit of both. And don't forget the iconic Wrangler jackets. This was my father's mistake. I didn't notice him out there at recess, but had he been wearing an iconic Wrangler jacket, then it would have been beaten into my brain as a core memory. So when the weather starts to chill and you need to venture out, Wrangler will keep you ready for anything. Add some Wrangler to your getup with jean shirts and jackets that look great, fit great, and move great so that you're always ready for whatever life throws at you. Save 15% on your first Wrangler.com order when you use promo code GOJO15. Wrangler for the ride of life. All right, guys, let's get to this, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to finish off the day. And let's start off with the most important business out here. Subway's doing a foot-long cookie in their ever-present quest to get back into the nation's limelight here, using millions of advertising dollars to secure athletes and entertainers of all sorts in their advertising campaign. They finally came on home to the easiest idea, which is, Dad, just give us a foot-long chocolate chip cookie, and we'll instantly come sprinting back to your doors. Because I can promise you, Monday when this thing pops off next month, they're starting this in December, I will be first in line to go and get the 2-foot cookie.
The amount of money that they could have saved from paying all the stars that they had in the Subway commercials, it could have been a 15-second commercial just showing a foot-long cookie and maybe a voice for the last 5 saying, starting whenever, foot-long cookie. That would have been it. That would have been all we needed. We'd have been at Subway. We'd have been standing in line at Subway, and they'd have saved a bunch of money.
And guys, December 4th is National Cookie Day, and it's going to be free on December 4th.
Oh.
I'm assuming you have to purchase a sandwich too or something, but just thought I would let people know.
Cool.
I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And now Dad is imprinted into my brain. The only advertisement Subway needed was Charles Barkley wolfing down these the way he did the impression of him wolfing down the churros when he was demeaning the women of San Antonio way back in the day. So Subway, get on that one. Give us the commercial that we all deserve. Let's get to that, guys. Yesterday, Deion Sanders was named SI Sports Person of the Year. Now, given SI's recent track record with their journalistic integrity, we can call into question the veracity of this award, but Dad, there's no doubt Deion Sanders was an important part of this sports year. We talked about the popular numbers around college football. You could certainly trace a lot of that back to Colorado and their popularity that transcended the world of sports through the first quarter of the season. But obviously, after that, lost 8 of their last 9, including 6 in a row to end the season. So it's apparently more about how you start than how you finish. I think we're flipping that old phrase.
Yeah, listen, what he brought to college football, which obviously is the second most popular sport behind the NFL, so it's there anyway. But to bring the extra limelight that he did and just how he conducts his business as one of the greatest NFL players of all time, I get it. Now, do you guys believe now? Do you believe now? Well, actually, no, we don't really believe. We'll see. Like most people said, let's wait and see. It's a good start. It finished more like a lot of people thought. Now we'll see where he goes from here. But I get this award. I mean, to a sport that is already madly popular, he brought even more eyes to it and cameras to it. So I'm absolutely cool with that award.
Yeah, you know what? It's one of those things that's going to get really interesting now. We've seen a bunch of decommits. The off seasons are so chaotic with the portal now that it's hard to know just how much of that to ascribe. But the road's going to get tougher. This is the first real adversity for Deion Sanders' coaching career. I did have one thought. I saw the preview last night on Thursday Night Football for the Amazon documentary Coach Prime. I wonder how many games of the season that documentary covers, because a lot of the promo stuff is from that first stretch there where they're on game day and The Rock's talking about them. Are we going to get to those 8 losses in 9 weeks at the end of the season? I have questions about that. I don't know if we'll get to the answers until the documentary comes out or if it's already out. I haven't seen it yet. Still got to get to the Barry Sanders one, too. Let's get to the third, though, guys, and get to the important stuff. We're talking about championships in sports all weekend. We have got the 33rd running of the Housekeeping Olympics coming up in Las Vegas, including 6 events, mop race, vacuuming, buffer pad toss, bed making, a spirit dance, what the hell, and the executive challenge where hospitality team bosses navigate a slalom course driving floor scrubbers here. We've got 6 teams from the Las Vegas hotels groups, a housekeeping team from the Defense Department, and 2 groups of hospitality workers from Canada. Dad, what would be your premier event in the Housekeeping Olympics?
I don't know what a buffer pad toss is. I certainly don't know what a spirit dance is, though I enjoy dancing. I would like to drive the floor scrubber in a slalom course because it reminds me of the what is it? Which lawnmower bowl was it where they raced the lawnmowers, the riding mowers?
Oh, the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl.
I mean, how much fun that would be. But out of all of those, I do vacuum. I think I can vacuum pretty well. So I'd probably lean there. The team from the Bellagio group, they're the ones that won the overall competition, so congratulations to them. Mike, in living alone and having to keep your house clean, which one of these events would you excel at?
So I would say this. I think we've talked about it before on the show. There are a few things as deeply satisfying as that feeling when you run the vacuum over a couple of really nasty stretches of stuff on the ground and you get that popping that goes up into it, that little crackle. Yeah. Oh, there's just not quite a rush like that. Bed making would be my spot, though. I start every day by making my bed when I get done with the show. Go over there, knock that out. It's a gift to my future self to go into a made bed at night when I lay down. And so I feel like I'd have that one knocked out. Jesse, what about you?
I would be really bad at all of these. I'm not good at any of this. I like to vacuum. I don't think I'm particularly good at it. I am very grateful for the amazing housekeeper that I have who comes once a week and keeps my house in order, because I certainly do not.
They're the pros. Let the pros do the work. The most satisfying chore for me, it's not on here, is power washing, where you see such immediate results in power washing. It makes me feel so good.
Yeah, that cleans the soul.
Nothing in this world quite like the feeling of seeing and feeling the power of the power washer in your hands. Maybe the only feeling that matches that is downloading, subscribing, rating, and reviewing this show. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you Monday.